Hey, Alex. Welcome to the His and Her Money Show.
Hello, Alex.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
We are glad to have you here because you have done something that a lot of people only dream of doing, and that is paying off a bunch of debt. So we can't wait to hear exactly how you were able to do that. But before we do, can you take a moment and introduce yourself to everybody and let them know what you're all about?
Hey guys, my name is Alex. I'm a drug dealer, licensed drug dealer. Haha, really funny joke that a lot of pharmacists say. It's not that funny. But I am a pharmacist by trade. That's my day job right now. On the side, I do a lot of things. I own a franchise. I am a business and career coach. I have a media company. I have a career development company. So I do a lot of different things. I like to say that I'm very productive with what little time that I have. I know that you're going to ask me a lot about our debt story, so I'll hold off on some of the cool things that we've been able to do in the short time that since I've been working, but I'm really excited to be here. I love podcasting. It's always great to meet other podcasters in person too. Like, this is a video podcast. I think this is my first. It's probably because you guys didn't see my picture. You're like, let's ask this guy to a video podcast. He'll be all right. And then now that I'm here, it's like we can always get rid of the video later.
No, you're great. You're just fine. So we're going to definitely talk about the whole business side of it because our audience loves to know about entrepreneurial things as well. But we're going to talk about your debt first. So tell our audience about the type of debt that you had, how much was it, and how long did it take you to pay it off?
Okay. So we'll go really basic here. So pharmacy school, I got lucky. I got a lot of scholarships and some help from the family, and I believe I graduated with about $48,000. That's actually about half of the average of what most pharmacists walk away from. And once I got my first job, we decided to buy a home right away, and that put us back about $80,000, a little over that, which is also pretty low. I know you guys are in Chicago, and like an $80,000 home is
non-existent.
Yes, and if it did, you wouldn't want to live there. But we chose to live in a really poor area, and the house that I live in now is like a mansion in comparison to some of the other homes in this area. So that was $80,000. We also had to buy a new car, so it was another, I believe, $13,000 or $15,000, all within like the span of a year of starting my new job. So also, and my wife's debt. I almost forgot about that. That was about $32,000 for her debt as well. And I think we had some medical bills in there as well, but I try to forget all that stuff. It feels really good to forget about it, actually.
Yeah, so that's about somewhere roughly around $180,000 in debt.
I've never said that out loud, but you guys are the math whizzes. I'm not. But yeah, I'm actually going to write that down so I remember that.
Yeah. Yeah, on average, that's about $180,000. And so how long did it take you guys to pay that off? That included the house too, right?
Yes. Actually, that's actually another $20,000 too, including the franchise that we got into.
We're almost at we're at 200,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So cross that baby off. Man, look what's happening in this podcast. I should know how much debt I've been in. Well, technically we are just now completely debt free, like as of recording of this podcast. And so there's a lot that goes into this picture. How would you like me to start this? How we went through this journey? What would be the best way to do that?
Let's talk about how you even got to the place to where you even attempted to get out of debt. A lot of people, like you said, the average person in your position comes out of pharmacy school with twice as much student loan debt as you had. So you could have took on the mindset of like, I got a head start. I don't really have to go at it hardcore. You could have just kind of cruised. You know, you got the house, you got the car, you're married, and you could have just started your life in that way like most people do. But something triggered in you to say, I want to pay off our debt. What got you to even think that thought?
My parents were really great. That's probably where I have to start. They taught me really important money management skills from a really young age. And I really rejected the idea of debt. I've always hated betting against myself. I hate insurance. I hate the idea of thinking like you could lose one day. And so just being in debt was something that I felt uncomfortable in, even in college. I knew that I wanted to get out of debt, but I didn't exactly know like how to make all that happen. And so in my last year of grad school, this is like 2011, 2012, my wife wanted to take a class about debt management. And I'm like, no, we don't need to do it. That's stupid. I'm the best at finances. We didn't have a budget at the time. And sure enough, we went to this class, and my wife was very, very smart to bring me along to it, because it kind of set the foundation for what we intended to do once I started making all this money. And I'm also glad that I took that class, because it made me realize, wow, I have a lot of control over my life and where I could go and what I could do with my life. This is an interesting idea to me. And it was something really new, because I don't know about you guys. I grew up in the church, and for whatever reason, I had a really foul taste in my mouth for like self-help gurus. Like I'm always like, they're stupid. They're just saying like, oh, believe in your dreams and everything will come true. And this is like the first time that I thought, is there truth to that? And because of that class, I actually read, if I could find it really quickly, I would have grabbed it. But I read How to Win Friends and Influence People and the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And that just changed the entire trajectory of my entire life. It changed everything for me. It took what I believed about life and about my faith and made it into real action. And so that was kind of like the foundation. And then once I got my job, we went to work, we hustled, and I'm open to share about what that actually looked like.
Yeah, we're gonna definitely get into that. So from that time when that started, so how long has it been from the time that you all took this class to now, as of today, being debt free?
6.5, 7 years, somewhere around there.
So, and you guys are only married for about 8 years, so you were pretty much almost newlyweds, right? Talking about, hey, let's just pay off this debt, And so, was your wife also on the same page at the same exact time? Like, yeah, like let's do this.
Yes, we haven't always been on the same page. In fact, we hardly are. I mean, she was trying to get me to watch some TV out there, some Korean drama show or Taiwanese show. I can hear her yelling at me right now before doing this. And I'm like, no, I'm going to write my book. I'm going to hustle. I'm going to do my thing. So we're hardly on the same page. But she was very, yes, let's get debt free. Let's get rid of this stuff so that we can go do what we want to do with our lives.
So once you all took this class, you guys got on the same page and you both realized this is something that you wanted to do. Talk to us about what was the plan? Like, how did you guys start the process? Because a lot of people want to get out of debt. A lot of people know they need to get out of debt. They don't know what to do. You even said you were at that point to where the class gave you motivation, and the way you were raised by your parents made you adverse to debt, and you knew coming out of school that you didn't like debt, but you didn't know how to get rid of it. So what was the plan for you all as you guys went forward?
It really became do as little decision making as possible. And so we had to really think and plan out what are our finances doing and how can we just push them our money into things before we have the ability to think about, I really want a jet ski, or I really want a new computer or whatever. So our first year, actually, I wasn't making a pharmacist salary. I was making a resident salary. So it was about $40,000. And I remember our paychecks were given to us monthly, and it was about, I want to say $2,700. And in the span, I think, of about 11 months, we were actually able to pay off a car loan during that time that was, I want to say, around $11,000. And, obviously there's a lot of decisions and money that goes into living very poorly, which is what we chose to do. Eat a lot of rice and beans and frozen chicken. But paying off that loan that we had really showed us, wow, we can do this really quickly, because my salary in the next year is about to triple. And so that got us really excited, and we immediately began hammering away at, I believe, my wife's debt once I got my job in the summer of 2013. So that's a little over 4 years ago now.
Yeah. So let's dig a little deeper. Everybody wants to know, okay, how did you guys pay off this debt? What were some of the strategies that you put in place? Feel free to share numbers. Give us as much information as possible on how you guys were able to knock this out in just about 6.5 years.
One of the key strategies we had was just living poorly. So living without, a lot of flair. One of the things that really helped us was a challenge to say, let's live off of one paycheck a month. So it's common knowledge right now, a pharmacist average salary is somewhere around 110, 115. And I was hired at my job at $115,000 a year, which is a lot of money. And we also were able to negotiate a debt reduction program, which is, in the government's eyes, it's basically you are paying off your debt at a certain rate, and if you meet the agreement, you will be paid back that money within a year's time. And so that was a huge benefit of joining any government a government position. Most, as you guys know, most jobs don't offer anything like that out there. And so we started getting all this money. We got about, each paycheck we received was about $3,000 back to us. And we were like, wow, this is this is like a month's salary before, when I was a resident, in 2 weeks' time. And so we just tried to live off of that. We made all of our expenses less than that. And we used that second paycheck of the month for debt. So we just took $3,000, threw it on debt, took $3,000, threw it on debt. And we plowed through my wife's debt extremely quickly. And then I want to say about 2 years into my job, we then focused on my house debt. And a lot of people, like, when they hear that, they think, well, why not the college loan first? Well, if I paid off all of my college loan first, then my job wouldn't be paying me back the money that I'm paying towards my debt. So it's kind of like I'm losing out on, $48,000 if I was to do that. So we paid off that debt. We got into a franchise, paid that off. Bought a car, paid that off like within 3 or 4 months. And there's a lot of little strategies. Can I share one quick strategy that I just realized that's huge? So I don't want to sound like one of those weird guys that gets into fads, but right now, intermittent fasting is a huge fad right now. And I'm not going to plug it or say like, it's so good for your health. It's what we used to be like back when we were cavemen, whatever. It's a way to save money. I've been drinking. I drink like 2 cups of coffee in the morning, and then I don't eat anything until dinner, and I'm pretty good. I've lost like 10 pounds of just body fat that was hanging around my butt and my gut. So I feel good. I feel better. And my wife told me the other day. She said we're probably saving like 60 to 70 bucks a week just by you doing that. So I was like, wow, cool. So anyways, just a quick tip that I learned.
Yeah, $67 a week. That ain't nothing to
That
sneeze
adds
at.
up. Absolutely.
Now, I love the fact that you talked about some of the things that you all did to reduce expenses and the money that you were able to free up, how you applied it to the debt. When we come back from this commercial break, I want to talk to some of the ways that you chose to increase your income. And we're going to talk more about that right after this commercial break.
Love reading, but wish you had more time to get into your favorite books? What if you could use the time you already have and listen to the books you already love? Well, now you can with Audible. With Audible books, you can be inspired, entertained, and educated anywhere, anytime. Choose from the bestsellers in self-development, business, nonfiction, and more. So what are you waiting for? Your first 30 days are free. Visit hisandhermoney.com/audible to get started today. That's hisandhermoney.com/audible.
So, Alex, right before we left, you were telling us how you guys were making sure that you lived really simply and kept your expenses super low and used the cash that you were able to free up using that strategy to apply towards your debt. But you also talked about the fact that you are an entrepreneur. You're also an entrepreneurial coach. So talk to us about the income increase side of the equation as you guys were going through this process. What were some of the things that you all did to make your income go up?
We could probably have an entire podcast about all the things that I've done. The impetus for being an entrepreneur for me was me working for about a month as a resident and then realizing, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do this for the rest of my life. And so I did everything. I sold used baby strollers that we got from garage sales. I sold stickers on Etsy. I built websites for people. I managed social media. I sold content. I freelanced. I did audio work. I've got that beautiful radio voice, and I just I did commercials in English for Chinese companies. I was just all over the place, and it made me a few extra $100 here and there. And I was like, wow, this is possible. This is real. And the story is too long to tell, but I eventually landed on content writing for healthcare companies. I found that these companies were willing to pay me a lot of money for my writing, and I thought, okay, I don't want to spend all my time writing because I'm not a great writer. Maybe I can hire someone else to do my work for me. And it was one of the smartest decisions I ever made, because as soon as I started doing that, I was just pumping out content and making a lot of money. And that's how we paid off everything so quickly, was providing a great service for a few companies and getting a great return on that really small investment. And I'm not saying that that's repeatable, because that business tanked eventually because the market just wasn't there. But it was a lot of luck and a lot of hustle. And people were seeing the things that I was doing, and it was very interesting. So a sub discussion here is, within my own industry in pharmacy, there's a lot of people who hate their jobs and hate their lives. They feel like a cog in a machine. They feel like they went to school for all these years to become a doctor, and all they've really become is like a drive-through person that just checks scripts all day. And people were asking me for help to either start a business or change careers. And I just started coaching people. And I found that I really enjoyed it. I really loved it. And that's how I got started coaching. So I've been doing that now for about 3-4 years. And that's kind of like our bread and butter with our company, Life Alchemy. And I've got people working for me. I have other coaches that coach other pharmacists, and just trying to grow this empire of, people working for me, so that while I'm at work and while I'm sleeping, I'm making money and paying off debt. And, technically we are debt free right now. We're just waiting to pay off that final bit of loan so that everything works out with my job, so that they'll send me a nice giant check to say, great job paying your loan, so that's how we kind of got to where we are today.
So let's talk about that entrepreneurial side, because I know a lot of people, while paying off debt, they want to start a business, but they feel guilty. Like, wait a minute, this will actually alter my debt payoff plan, or stop it or prolong it. So talk about that. How do you decide to say, okay, let's still go into business? Because I'm sure it costs money. Some businesses cost money to start. I mean, you mentioned that you had a $20,000 franchise fee. So talk about that. Like, how did you make that decision to say, hey, we're paying off debt, but yet we also want to build our companies?
So I think Warren Buffett said it best. His quote, and I'm paraphrasing here. You can correct me in post-production. Just do your best impression of me as possible. He said something like, the best investment you can make is in yourself. This is coming from Warren Buffett, who literally is one of the richest men in the world. When I was a resident making $40,000 a year, I remember having a conversation with my wife about hiring a coach to learn how to do this stuff. And he charged me $500 a month, which, hindsight's 2020. $500 a month is like a really cheap coach. And I remember trying my best to convince my wife that we needed to do this. And she's like, we're trying to pay off this car. What do you mean? Like, we're wasting money. And I don't know how I did it, much like I don't know how I married my wife or fooled her into that bargain. But I convinced her to get the coach. And ever since then, it's been a journey of trying to figure out how to validate ideas really quickly without spending a lot of money or time. So, many, many years ago, if you wanted to start a business, you needed a substantial sum of money to buy things and invest in things. In today's world, it's extremely easy now to provide a service or even create a really cheap product that you can sell. And that's how I got started. Like I said, I bought baby strollers really, really cheap. I mean, I tore these mothers apart trying to give me $5 strollers just so I could sell them on Amazon and eBay for a bigger profit. And I sold services. So I did things like coaching and writing, which the only thing it took was my time and energy. And I made, practically 100% profit off of doing those things. Depending on whatever your idea is, freelancing is one of the easiest ways to start a side business. One in which, once you figure out a process for anything, all you need to do is teach it to other people. I used to be a podcaster just like you. I still have podcasts up and available. But one of my first podcasts ever was the Leadership Dojo. And I had a lot of success with it. And people came to me saying, hey, I want your secret sauce. I want all your knowledge. Help me. And so I became a consultant. I taught what I knew, and that didn't cost me anything to just teach what I know. So if you are like gung-ho about debt, if your husband or your wife wants to start a business and you're like, I'm not going in debt just to get out of debt. This doesn't make sense. I would challenge that and say, can you use other people's money to make more money? I'm sure you guys have read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Yeah. So I haven't implemented that strategy, but I am a firm believer of it, that if someone else can give you a loan for a chunk of change and you know that you'll use that money to make more money, that's a win-win deal, baby. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I'm using my business's line of credit to invest in Bitcoin, and I'm so happy. Because Bitcoin is just doing crazy things right now. I'm not trying to get anyone into Bitcoin. This isn't a Bitcoin thing. It's too late to join right now anyway, probably. But just, yeah. So anyways, you got to reconcile. And you guys have been happily married for 12 years. You guys know you got to be on the same page, because if you're not on the same page, it doesn't end well. And I've actually seen marriages split up because of, these kinds of decisions. So if you're a hustler and you think you got to have a lot of money, try to figure out how you could provide your service on the cheap end, on the really low end, to like one specific person. Go out and mow some lawns, right? Go hustle. Then find someone who you could pay a little less than what it costs to do the service, right? Replicate yourself. So anyways, that's my spiel.
Everybody doesn't understand the hustle, though. You guys made the decision that you guys are going to hustle your way out of debt. You all made the decision that you were going to try all these different entrepreneurial endeavors to assist you in that manner. Did friends and family get it? Did you have to explain yourself? Did it affect people's view of you? Because when people make the decision to get out of debt, sometimes they become a little bit isolated because friends and family don't understand it. They don't see why they're going through all these changes. Like you said, you guys initially were living very poorly and cutting back everywhere that you could. How was that for your social circles and your family to see?
It wasn't too hard. The constant pressure we get is from my in-laws who they live a lot different than probably what you guys do and how we live. But, they make significantly less than we do, and they're constantly spending money all the time and wondering, like, why aren't we doing the things that we could do? But, they've learned to accept our lifestyle and realize that we have, a different set of priorities. We don't want to be in debt forever, whereas they believe they will be in debt forever. It's a big change. We haven't really received a whole lot of hate or criticism. Maybe the occasional, like, condescending comment, like, you guys, I have pharmacist friends and they see my house and they go, okay, but I think the hardest thing that I've had to overcome was actually my mother's doubt about what I was doing. I've always ignored my mother. I was a bad son. I never tried to get her approval. I was always rebelling, and but I remember when I was in that vulnerable state of, I really want this idea to work. I don't know how I'm going to make it work, but I'm just going to try, whatever. And if I look stupid doing it, so be it. And I remember my mom saying a few things that really frustrated me, but I remembered that, she doesn't think like me. She's not in my situation. She doesn't know what I'm trying. She doesn't understand. So that didn't really slow me down too much. And now I remember the first time my wife mentioning, like, that I made, like, a significant sum of money, and she goes, "What? You make money from that online stuff? I thought that was just a hoax." And I was like, "Yep, that's what I do now. I'm just living the hoax, living the dream. I'm just like all those other scammers, talking about Bitcoin and such.
So, were there any obstacles along the way? You know, sometimes when you're paying off debt, sometimes, there's bumps in the road and you have to adjust in order to, focus on those bumps. What were some of the obstacles that you guys encountered over the 6.5 years?
I have to say this. I'll just say this with a caveat. I know I have to constantly check my ego at the door. The whole debt journey is a struggle for a lot of people. They don't have the luxury of choosing a profession that makes a significant sum of money. But what I think you have to realize is that $200,000 of debt is the same as 300,000 or even 100,000. You have to decide how you're going to tackle it. And we were really lucky in that the emergencies we did have over the years, a surgery, a car payment, a car accident, renovation, we were able to tackle those things so quickly based on the decisions we made earlier on. We didn't have an emergency fund because every 4 weeks I'd have $3,000 of extra cash just sitting around that we could dedicate towards whatever thing we chose. I would say the challenges that have come our way have been the money conversations, right? Where my wife and I have to sit down and we have to butt heads about what it is that we want to do. And usually me relenting with my iron fist around my money and saying, okay, we need to chill out. Or I need to chill out. I need to not be so tight-fisted around my money and realize you need to live a little. You need to take care of your family. You need to invest in a few things. But we have been extremely blessed, and I don't want to ever take that for granted, or sound like this was an easy path, or this is easy because I make tons of money. I coach a lot of pharmacists, and the majority of them are in astronomical amounts of debt, and it continues because they don't have a plan. Now, they make the same amount of money as me, and they have a relatively same amount of debt or same time frame, but they just they made different decisions, intentionally or non-intentionally. And so, to answer that question, I would say, in comparison to most people, we don't really have a powerful story of how we overcome. So I know some people are like shaking their heads, like, oh, man, this guy. I'm liking him less and less as this podcast goes on.
No, I don't think so. I think your
No,
story is super incredible because
so.
you guys were very innovative and you
Yep.
guys made decisions that people at half your income are not choosing to make. You guys chose to live on significantly less than what you make. You added to that, you tried to find creative ways to bring in more income, and you didn't like use that as a tool to live recklessly. You got more dialed in and you stayed more focused on the goal. So I hope that's what everybody's taking away, that no matter what your current debt is, no matter what your current income level is, you have to have first a foresight to know where you're trying to get to. Then you have to be willing to do the work and make the sacrifices necessary to get there. And then you still need to be trying to be as creative as possible, not settling, but always trying to grow, always trying to get better, and always trying to even shorten the journey to debt freedom. So I believe that's what people are going to be taken away from your story. Looking back over the whole journey, 6.5 years later, what do you think was the biggest lesson that you learned about life in general as a result of going through this process?
This is the stuff that like books are made of. I hope you compile all these answers into a book. The biggest lesson. don't be afraid of looking stupid. That's probably the best way I can sum it up. I coach a lot of people, business owners, pharmacists, a chiropractor, and the one thing I found in common with a lot of them, and including myself, is that most people are very afraid of looking stupid or being rejected. And that's a surefire. If you're wanting the magic to happen, but you don't want to give up your comfort level, then I can guarantee you whatever goal that you have is not, it will take a lot longer than what it could. I mean, imagine if J.K. Rowling said, I don't think this Harry Potter stuff is going to work out. I really don't want people reading my stuff. Imagine if Elon Musk was like, America's a really scary place. I'm just going to stay here in South Africa. I have a hard time believing that if you want to be successful, if you want to get rid of your debt, and you want to live debt-free life to go do something else with your life, the only way that you're going to get there is by doing things that look really stupid to other people. Even like listening to a podcast. I remember when I was ridiculed once for listening to a podcast. Like this is maybe like 2012, and like you're like, oh, I felt like I was like being called a nerd. Like, oh, you listen to a podcast? Like, what's a podcast? And I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna go on my merry way. Sorry for being stupid. And I mean, I know that I have a reputation for being weird, and I guess you have to embrace your weirdness, embrace the fact that you're a total loser compared to some people, and just say, okay, I'm cool with that. Now let's hustle. Let's try to figure out what we can do to reach our goals, even if it is looking insanely stupid. I remember setting up shop as a coach, and my first thought was, who are you to do this? Like, how can you claim to be someone like this? And my immediate thought after that was, I say that I am. And I think this is the direction that I want to go in. And if I fail at it, so be it. And that's like the number one question I get from pharmacists is like, how did you get the gall to set up business? How did you get the bravery to do it? And I've learned that it comes down to not being afraid to fail, not being afraid of rejection. By the way, can I plug in something? Can I do a plug for me? Check out the 66-Day Experiment podcast. It's not an active show anymore, but it has 4 seasons in it. And in the second season, I do this 30-day experiment where I do a daily rejection challenge, where I just go out and I do crazy things where I expect to be rejected. Like, I asked this guy if I could borrow his dog. I asked to be in the newspaper. I asked for free coffee. So stuff like that. And I would challenge you that you probably haven't figured out all the ways that you could try to get rid of your debt faster. So ask yourself this question. What would be stupid of us to do to get rid of our debt faster? What would be a, quote, stupid thing? Because that's where you can get really creative and innovative. So that would be my biggest lesson.
That's so good. So good. And we will definitely make sure that we include the links to that experiment in the show notes or in the description box. So what are some book recommendations? I see a ton of books back there, which leads me to believe that you love to read. So share some book recommendations that you can recommend to our audience. It doesn't necessarily have to be about finances or helping you to get out of debt, but what are some books that are your go-to books that have really, really helped you?
By the way, I'll do another plug since you guys gave me permission. The 66-Day Season 1 is a show where I read a book a day and I shared what I learned each day. The most recent book that has been a game changer for me is called Blue Fishing by Steve Sims. wow, what a great book. It taught me that to run a business really well, to run your life well, you need to treat people like your friends. You get them gifts. You care about them. You send them notes to let them know that you really do care. And it really opened my eyes for a guy who has a big ego and a guy who, is an only child. I don't know if that comes through or not in my message, but that's an excellent book. I already mentioned How to Win Friends and Influence People. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, both amazing books if you haven't read them. If you have ever thought about being a coach, if something I've said about coaching has interested you, a great book that I'd recommend is called The Prosperous Coach by Rich Litvin, which sounds like a really gimmicky name, but some of the premises in the book have really changed my life and my business. And one final recommendation, and that is the most scariest book that I've ever read ever. You guys ready? Actually, no. Well, number one, I actually believe this. If you really want to learn how to manage money well, you should probably read the Bible. It's got more verses about money than I think any other topic. I've learned a lot of wisdom from that book. But the scariest book that I've ever read that has changed my perspective on the world is called The 48 Laws of Power.
Robert Greene.
Yeah. Wow. Have you read it?
And I read The 50th Law.
Oh, okay. You went above and beyond. I like to think of myself as an ethical person, but like that book, it like in the wrong hands is like the evil genius's guide to influence. I mean, he talks about some really interesting stuff that makes you think about how are you interacting in the world and how are you influencing other people. Really great read, and highly recommend it, but not for evil.
If people want to get connected with you, maybe they need some coaching advice, or maybe they just need some advice in general, where on the web are you these days?
The best place probably to connect with me is on LinkedIn. But send me a message. Don't just send me a random LinkedIn connection. Actually say, do you guys get those requests where people just connect with you and like don't? I've been trying to tell people that's insane. That's like going up to a networking party and just smiling at people and then just handing your business card to them and then just walking away. Like, what? You'd freak out if someone did that, but apparently online no one has a problem with it. So connect with me there. You can check out my blog, alexbarker.co. I write there occasionally. I do random interviews with local entrepreneurs in my area. But LinkedIn is probably the best way to connect with me.
And if they go to LinkedIn, what do they search for?
Most handsomest 6 out of 10 man on LinkedIn. No, you search for Alex Barker. Maybe we can get a photo of me on here. But alexbarker.co, good. That was a good question. Probably alexbarker.co is that's the best way to get a hold of this guy.
And we'll have a link to Alex's blog as well as a direct link to his LinkedIn page. Alex, this has been super awesome and insightful, and we are appreciative. And thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your story with our audience today.
Yes, thank you so much, Alex.
Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it. I think what you guys do is really powerful. I think I don't think you should listen to my show. Keep listening to this show. Keep figuring out how you can get out of debt, because it is really powerful what you can start doing with your life once you're out of it. So keep at it, keep believing, keep pushing as hard as you can. And I really do hope you, as a listener, can get out of debt as quickly as you can. So again, guys, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.